A simple question will be the focus of today's theory. Can trainers use other trainers' Pokemon? Instantly, the answer to this would be a no, at face value. But is there a way to borrow someone else's Pokemon for reasons? But if today's theory doesn't interest you, stay subscribed for my theory on if Pokemon can be trainers or not, among several others. So for today, let's address the theory. Can trainers borrow and use other trainers' Pokemon? Today's video was suggested by Thug Life Charmander, and they asked, can trainers use borrowed Pokemon? First off, let's address the fact that I'm not talking about Team Rocket and stealing Pokemon, though that does need addressed, so let's begin there. Team Rocket sells the stolen Pokemon or uses them for their own gain. Other organizations do this as well, like Team Plasma. The problem is, with multiple examples, when a Pokemon is stolen, like Ash's Pikachu or his other Pokemon, they always resisted and they never listened to Team Rocket. There have been also other cases where Team Rocket stole other Pokemon, and they wouldn't listen, such as AJ Sandshrew or Double's Ditto. But then, in other cases, like Black and White 2, when the protagonist's friend, shall we call him, kept moaning about his sister's cat, Team Plasma had stated that it probably was already being used. Using a GameShark code to steal Pokemon will allow the player to control the stolen Pokemon as well, but that is not evident since it's an outside device. And there is Pokemon Coliseum, but that's a whole separate theory. But before I finish up with the teams of both the games and animes, it's worth mentioning that anytime a legendary Pokemon is involved, the so-called leader never needs to capture it to control it. So there's that. I suppose we can speculate that it is based on the relationship between the Pokemon and the trainer, if it will listen when stolen. But that would throw the energy binding and brainwashing theories out the window. This is one time where there is both evidence for and against so strongly that it completely contradicts itself at times. Let's move on to a more solid example. In the games, there are many times where a player is given an already trained up Pokemon, eggs, or finds an abandoned Pokemon. Examples consist of Eevee above Game Freak headquarters in Red and Blue, the egg directly after the first gym in Gold and Silver, and selecting a Pokemon to defend the good professor in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. There are even more examples too of real caught Pokemon like Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle in Yellow, all given to the player willingly. It is interesting that if given, Pokemon for the most part will listen to their trainer, with the exception of Pikachu and Charizard in the anime.
But Frodo, you're talking about given Pokemon, not borrowed. But Frodo, stolen Pokemon are not borrowed Pokemon. But Frodo, you're mixing the games and the anime again. You're bad at this. Your theories have gotten terrible. Unsubbed, everyone unsub with me, then comment about us unsubbing.
Oh yes, I have had a good handful of people voicing their concern with my theories as of late. But don't worry, I have a special theory contest coming soon to quell those. As for mixing the game and anime's logic, it's very hard to keep them separate in this instance when we are answering the question for both, and both require looking at. Both the games and the anime allow players to borrow Pokemon, and I do not mean buy one at the game corner, find one, or get given one. I mean legitimately borrow one for a battle or another reason. First, let's begin with the games. As I stated before, the example I used with the starters of the Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire version. This is 100% confirmation of borrowing a Pokemon. These starter Pokemon belong to the professor, and when you go to save him, it is required that you use one of his Pokemon. You'd think being ordered by someone else to battle might cause a conflict, but it doesn't. Perhaps that is because of the situation being so dire, but it's still an example of legitimately borrowing a Pokemon. But there is one more example that is much darker and depressing. In Alistar City in X and Y, an old man asks to borrow one of your Pokemon. Later, returning to the man's house, if you let him borrow a Pokemon, he will leave a note confirming of his death and returning your Pokemon. As sad and depressing as that is, it is the player that lets someone else borrow their own Pokemon. The next example is from the anime. In the episode where Ash was having such trouble battling Brock's Onix, Misty stated, quote, "Why don't you just use some of my water Pokemon?" This implies, if not confirms, that she was offering to let Ash borrow her Pokemon for the gym battle. Later, when taking a test, Ash is also given Pokemon in the test. So we have two examples where Pokemon can be borrowed, in both the games and the anime. Answering our question, can Pokemon be borrowed or used by other trainers? Yes they can. just very rarely. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this theory. It has 100% evidence behind it. I separated and isolated the game and the anime examples as well. Any other complaints? Well, I'm sure I won't hear them now, unless my evil twin comes back, but he's crazy. Please like and share the video, and I've been your host, Protomario, and I'm signing out. Good gaming, and God bless. Thanks for watching my video and making it to the end. If you want to see my theories a day early, make sure to head over to my Patreon, where donators get a day early viewing of my newest theories. And follow me over on Twitter to see my updates about certain videos and access to some cool unlisted hidden content as well. If you don't have Twitter, I am on Tumblr too, so be sure to check out my videos on your preferred social networks or subscribe here on good old YouTube. I've been on YouTube for a while now, and I don't plan on going anywhere soon, so I hope you keep supporting me by liking the video and sharing it where you can on Facebook or Twitter or other forums as well. Thank you again for taking a bit of time out to support me, and I hope to see you here next time on Pokemon Theory. Please note that in all my videos, if I use images from Google, that I do not own any of those images, and all images obtained from Google are owned by their respective owners and copyrights. So please remember this when watching my Pokemon theories. Thanks.